Thank you very much. Good morning. It's a great pleasure for me to be in Szeged, not in Budapest as in this PowerPoint. Um, my salutations to all, and specifically to our moderator, Professor um, Marton Suliok, and the other colleagues of this first panel. Um, I am glad to be here and to be grateful for this kind of invitation to participate in this important conference organized in a good time by a European Public Law Organization and by University of Szeged. Is for me is my very first time in this city, not in Hungary, and this is a good moment for me, and good moment and a good day because I think we have something in common in this 25th of April. In Portugal, this day is a holiday because we are commemorating in Portugal our democratic revolution, the 35th of April of 1974. It was the revolution of carnations that led to a new republic, the Third Republic, a democratic and social republic. And two years later, our constitution from 1976. But I suppose this is day for you is also a very good day because it's the day of the approval of your constitution in 25th of April of 2011, I suppose. So we have in common today this remember. Um, I would like to talk about a specific issue. I'm not a specialist in European Union fields, although I sometimes I was a professor in this area of law. But I would like to point out a specific perspective that is a perspective from the national security dealing with these issues about economy or economic sovereignty. I think this is the theme of the moment, and I think it's very important for you, for Portugal, and for the European countries to talk about this issue. And I would like to synthesize my reflection in these three points: the need, the problem, and the solution. Obviously, I don't have in my pocket the miracle solution for this problem. As you could see, the problem is more complex than it seems because we are seeing interconnection between European laws and national laws. The problem is not so simple, but if you can view the problem from the perspective of national security, perhaps we can reach some more precise results. We have the need. What is the need? Is the need to protect strategical and economic fields. Nowadays, we consider, obviously, in the globalized world, as a part of economic independence of a country. There is no only a political sovereignty, or there is no only a political independence, but also obviously economic independence from the other countries inside this globalized world. And what is the problem? The problem is how to compatibilize this national economic sovereignty to the European rules and laws that has the direction of having freedom of movements of people, citizens, goods, services, capitals, and after the Treaty of Lisbon, to open totally the European Union space, economic space, to the world without any kind of protection or protectionism. So it's difficult to how to deal with this problem, to have to maintain our national security in terms of economic areas, fields, issues, companies, activities, without having laws that are against the European Union laws. That is the problem. And the solution perhaps is to point out now, to stress the importance of the economic security inside the dimension of national security. And let's see if in this way we can reach a good solution for your problem, for our problem. In the final of my reflection, I will talk about the golden share problem we had in Portugal during a recent period of a financial crisis. I suppose you also have that problem here in Hungary about golden shares. And I would like to compliment the Ministry of Justice. Thank you for your presence. Now, um, something about the evolution of European Union. Not nothing special. Just to say that we have basically two periods. A first period from the beginning till the European Union Treaty, Maastricht Treaty. We only had at that time an economic union with the different stages. With all the stages of an economic cooperation. But after the Maastricht Treaty, indeed we changed the nature of European Union. Not only the fact that that name was enshrined in this treaty, although in the first time only in a political way, now is recognized as a legal entity, the European Union, differently the countries and differently the communities. But obviously there is a second period of European Union because the competences and the attributions of this institution are more wider than before, including justice, internal security, and foreign policies. Nowadays, we don't have no more this segmentation between three pillars. Now we have a mixed in so many fields that it is hard to say that we have one pillar only for domestic intervention and the other area for only the communitarian intervention. Uh, that leads the question. It's difficult to have a good answer. What is the nature of the European Union? Obviously, we have a mixed institution with the supranational features, obviously, in the first stage. But now we have some elements, some features of indeed a federal state. I'm not a federalist, but I must recognize that the European Union has some of federalist elements, and I think it's not a problem. The conclusion is that it's a confederation, perhaps, as a sui generis confederation organization. But I think it is a theoretical discussion. I think it's not worthwhile discussing here what kind of nature is the European Union. But now talk about something in the national security, because in this field many things are happening. Not only because of the terrorism, not only because of the 9/11. Indeed, 9/11, September 9/11, changed a lot the international relationship in terms of international security. Many things change, as we can, as we know, and unfortunately, some of our countries suffer terrorist threats and attempts. But nowadays, the problem of the security is being seen in a different perspective. Because now we many times talk about human security, not only the political security or not only a security between states, but a security involving the citizens, the security that consider mostly the person, the citizen, and all the needs a citizen in nowadays have to get from the state or from the international community. So our for the moment either international security or national security is a broader concept with the social and economic dimensions, like security in energy, like critical infrastructures that are expressed in the European treaties, environment, transportation, supplying of energy, and many things. This is an exemplificative list, but we no longer can consider the national security as a political problem or the security against the coup d'etat or the revolutions or a foreign invasion of a foreign army. That's an old conception of national security. Now we have to deal with a new conception of national security, where we must include an economic sovereignty as a new field of national security, like the security of the supplying of energy. So this is important, a new approach we now are studying. And obviously, this approach is not only related with the economic issues, because the challenge we have in the future is to compatibilize the new national security requirements to citizens, rights of the citizens, rights and freedoms and liberties in Europe, not giving up of having a democracy, state, and the rule of law in our countries. I think we are winning that battle, but we cannot give up, and we must continue to have a balance between security and freedom, and that is not easy in some situations. As you can see, in some countries, there are some decisions to increase security and to decrease liberty or freedom of citizens, mostly the right of privacy. I wonder if we have now still the right of privacy. Now, if the economic sovereignty can be included in a broader national security concept, I think things can be facilitated, because when we read the European Treaty of Maastricht, for example, Article 4, number 1, there we can see clearly that are some domains, some fields that remain in the sphere of domestic affairs of national interests, and some fields are not attributed to European Union. Besides, the Treaty of Lisbon was important to say that what is not given to the European Union remains automatically inside in the field of national intervention of states, with a taxative principle that is in the Article 4, number 1 of Treaty of European Union. And the second number of that article says clearly that the domains that are inside the domestic intervention of the states, including national security in particular, is the sole responsibility of each member state. So, reading this article, we perhaps can have an answer to limit some kind of external intervention, economic intervention, from the other European countries, mostly from the foreign states or foreign countries, in terms of having a specific monopoly or interests or in a particular economic activity or a company. The fact that national security is an exclusive competence of states that fact is not in contradiction with the new dimension the European Union have for the moment, that is a foreign policy that can include a defense policy, an intervention of the European Union in the humanitarian crisis, for example. But the treaty is very clear to saying that national security is a competence, exclusive competence of state members. So we have obviously the European Union's freedoms, as I said. In this situation, national security is an internal limit to the freedoms of the European Union, because if you invoke the national security, there is no application of European law, and even the property of the regime of property in each country is recognized by the Treaty of Rome, with this new name, the functioning of European Union, Article 345, that saying that article saying that the property status is a national competence. Some years ago in France, the state had nationalized some companies. That nationalization was not against the European rules. So, although the fact that in European Union we have a freedom of movements of services, capitals, and goods, is that true? But the European Union does not impose a specific regime of property. In other words, we can have, obviously, in European Union a public sector, and the European Union does not prohibit the existence of a public sector with public companies in some activities. Not obviously in all activities, like in the socialist state. In the socialist states, all the activities were public, but not for ideological reasons, but but because of strategical reasons, we can have public companies to defend the national interests, the strategical activities that can be protected by public companies, not only by public companies, by prohibiting some investments in some activities, or by an intervention in the administration of those companies. So we can here see a diversity of instruments in order to control, because of national interests, the activity of foreign investments and foreign companies that are working in each country. Now, something about your constitution. This is for me a very great adventure to make interpretation of your constitution. But we have a very important constitution, a new constitution, and these two articles are very important to this matter, because in the article 38.2, you refer the importance of protect the national assets, including in the national economy security. I can see in that terms. Obviously, the law, the ordinary law, can regulate that kind of concepts and the limitations of those concepts. And obviously, the Article E2, like all the constitutions, is saying that Hungary does not tolerate any kind of law that could alienate the territorial unity or the structure of the state. So here we have something important in your constitution to be a reason of having a protection or your vital interests, in this case, economic interests. Obviously, to the European Union law, this is not important, because we know that European Union law considers itself above the national law, but I am not sure about that. You know that is a complex problem. I think we must understand that problem in not in the white or black position, but making some distinguish between the fields. And like the decision of the Bundesverfassungsgericht, Maastricht 1 and Maastricht 2, I think this is a good solution. That is a solution we have in Portuguese constitution. We consider, we accept the supremacy of European law, not an absolute supremacy, but a supremacy upon ordinary law, even over the constitutional, but with the important exception, that is the respect to the fundamental principles of rule of law, d'état de droit. This is our Article 8, number 4, if you have the curiosity to read that norm. Finally, to conclude my reflection, as you know, we had a very big problem some years ago, like in Greece. Greece is much worse than we are now. We are putting us behind the economic and financial crisis. But in 2011, we need a borrow from the European Union and the International Monetary Fund. And at that time, the Troika, that was a group of institutions, European Commission, a Central European Bank, and International Monetary Fund, those institutions went to Portugal and imposed to Portugal, as a condition to give the money, several requisites in many fields, perhaps too much. But at that time, Portugal has had no alternative. The alternative was the bankruptcy. And one of the problems was the golden shares, because we had some important companies, telecommunications companies, where the state had the position of a golden share. What is a golden share? Is a share with little money but big power to control and to have the majority of the decisions of the company. And at that time, Portugal, unfortunately, in my opinion, revoked those legislation that recognized the position of the state in some companies with golden shares. And the result in one of the more important companies we had in Portugal, that is Telecom, was a big disaster, because the company was bought by foreigners, and nowadays the company is in bankruptcy, with a lot of problems, and was privatized with many companies from Brazil, from Europe, and from many countries. And this is an example that in some cases, if you revoke the golden share position, the result can be a disaster for your economic independence and even for the quality of the services. Obviously, there is an alternative, because the state can impose some public services, obviously paying those public services, not only with the mechanism of golden share. There are some other mechanisms, like impose some activities, like in transports, saying to the companies to maintain some routes of the transportation of trains or buses, or in our air transportation company, TAP Air Portugal, that was privatized. The state said that the center of the business must stay in Portugal, with some limits in the routes, in the flights that the company in the future should guarantee. There is other ways to maintain, to guarantee the security of the state in terms of national independence or national of economic independence, economic sovereignty. But I'm not in the agree to the position of European Union that is quite liberal and in many cases does not respect the national interests of the states. So in sometimes the European Union goes too far, and in many cases giving the business to foreign countries and not taking care about the European countries. That is the problem. I know that that situation in some cases is not is intentional because we know what are the interests, the world interests besides or behind some people, some leaders, and some companies. But we must be patriotic, and being patriotic is not being against European Union, because we are European. You are European. We like European Union, but European Union must like also the European countries that are inside the European Union. Thank you for your attention.